Hello, Mr. Child. Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. You come from the television business. What makes you change? I'm coming to this black literature, this noir literature.
Yeah, well, it was almost 20 years that I was in television, and I just got fired. I lost my job. It was not because I'd done anything wrong. It was because the industry was changing. They wanted younger people that would work for cheap. And just one of those things that happened to millions of people, I think, in the 1990s. So I was out of work and I had to think, what could I do? And more importantly, what could I do without giving up what I loved, which is entertaining an audience? And so I thought, well, the best shot really is to write a book, because it's the same kind of thing, really. This kind of book, I think, is not that different from a movie or a TV show. So I thought, let's give it a try, and happily it worked.
Specifically, Mr. Child, what is the first idea that makes you create this book with so many double games?
Yeah, it was a very twisty plot in this book, but really I just started out thinking that in contrast to a lot of the previous books, which take place in rather remote areas of America, I thought I would show the old guy some glamour here and send him to Paris, send him to London, and make it a bit more international in feeling, almost my version of a James Bond or a Jason Bourne type of movie, to see what Risha was like in Paris and London. And I had a lot of fun writing it. I can always tell how the book is going to be, because whether I'm having fun doing it, and I did with this one.
Nowadays they say that the crime literature is the social literature. What were you trying to tell to your readers with Personal?
Well, I think you're right that crime fiction is really the last place that you'll find socially realistic novels, and maybe 50 years or 100 years from now people will look back and read them in order to find out what life was like. And really what I'm trying to say in this one is we are subject to an awful lot of surveillance, that we can be tracked lots of different ways, through our phones, through satellites, through communications of every kind. It's really very hard to be anonymous. And I wanted to show how a very loosely defined cabal of agencies basically snoops on the whole world.
In this novel you talk about the diplomatic relations between England, between France and the US. Why are all these countries always trying to go and prove that they can go even further?
Yeah, they always, it's very interesting how they want cooperation when they need it. You know, in this book there's been an attack in France, so France wants everybody's help, and yet Britain will not let anybody else operate in Britain because that's their turf and they want to guard it quite jealously. So it shows you that people will want it both ways. They want their own autonomy, but they also want help when they need it.
There is a great deal of criticism against the government, the army. Do we really know who is governing us?
We have no idea, do we? We really don't. We think we know. And to an extent, we've always suspected that the government that we vote for, that changes, is not really running things, that it's the bureaucracy and the civil service that's running it. And I think now we understand that not only that, but the intelligence services too. It's like it's too important to leave it to the politicians. They have to take charge behind the scenes.
When reading Personal, you realize that beyond all these diplomatic relationships, there is more into the personality of your main character. How he doesn't like to go under the rules. What people love so much of your character?
I think it's because we all are subject to rules, that you know, we live with rules and obligations, and we're not free. And so we have a fantasy, what would it be like if we were free, if we had nothing to tie us down, if we had no commitments, no obligations, and we could act however we wanted. I think that's a very appealing fantasy, and we see Risha do it. This is how he lives. He had nothing to tie him down, nothing to keep him in one place, and he ignores the rules if he wants to. And so, because we can't, we love to read it where somebody else is doing it, like an escape.
Do we need heroes to save us from chaos?
Yeah, I think so, yeah, and we also don't like chaos. We like order, so that we love a book where there is a hero who turns chaos into order.
What is Sherlock Holmes' influence in your main character?
You know, Sherlock Holmes I think, influences every character in crime fiction because he was the first and the greatest, really. I think the analytical skills that Sherlock Holmes has show up in Reacher a lot, and the general patchiness of his knowledge. You know, Sherlock Holmes was an expert on a lot of things, but an idiot about other things. And Reacher is the same. He knows a lot, but there's also plenty he doesn't know.
Readers at the end of your novel always end up completely astonished and surprised, open mouth. Is something that you premeditate, or is something that you really need?
Well, it starts with I must be surprised. You know, I don't plan it out. I don't have an idea of what's going to happen. I just, every step of the way, I surprise myself. And so I just always look for what's going to make me go, wow. And if I put that down, then other people will say the same thing.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Child, for having us, and enjoy your award in Spain.
Thank you.